listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Happy Tuesday evening, folks. This is Scotty Roberts. Welcome to my show. This is the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio, all the places where you can find this show in its audio format archived. Also, come on over to my YouTube channel to watch the video simulcast. And also over there, you're going to find a chat room that's live as this show is being broadcast. You can go over and join the other Intrepids, your fellow Intrepids, and talk about this show or anything you'd like over there. So come on over to youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts, where you're also going to find over 350 episodes of the Intrepid radio program archived in video format, along with the recordings of their live chat rooms over down below the main window. You're going to see it over there. You can also join my YouTube channel. Just hit the join button, and there's going to be 3 different membership levels that you can join. Go over and take a look, see what appeals to you, and join the channel. And I appreciate your membership. It helps continue to do what I'm doing now. And also, I want to, as an introduction, because I haven't said this for a long time, when I talk about the things I talk about on this show, I've got a background. My background is this. I have a high school diploma. I graduated in 1976 from high school. I then went on for 2.5 years in Bible college. I dropped out and never graduated from Bible college. The small church I was in started a seminary, and I went to that seminary. They tutored me in the balance of my bachelor's degree, and I started working on my master's degree, neither of which I finished. So with all the post-high school education I have, I am a scholar with only a high school diploma. I have no real letters behind my name, though I've got about 5 years of post-high school education toward my master's. So there you go. That's what I bring to the table as an educated man, as a scholar, as an academic. And the rest of the time, the next 35 to 40 years, which brings me to date, I've done my own study on my own research, my ability to think, my critical thinking processes. Could I have been a master's degree holder if I'd stuck to it instead of going into advertising? Yeah, I could have. Could I have been a PhD in my field? Yeah, I could have done that. But let's put it this way. I've had people criticize me for my lack of letters behind my name, saying I'm a fraudulent scholar, I'm fraudulent historian and all of this, because I don't have letters behind my name. Well, I'll tell you what, my career has been in advertising. I'm an artist. I illustrate, I paint pictures, I write books. You know what? I didn't have a degree in any of that stuff either. So I guess I'm a fraudulent artist. I'm a fraudulent illustrator because I don't have letters behind my name. This is how inconsistent, how stupid that is. Folks, you don't need a university education or letters behind your name to think critically and to go out and research for yourself. The tools are all there. It's all the same thing. All I'm doing, I'm either doing it to take a test and get a grade at the end of the year and get a letter conferred on me by an institution, or I'm doing it to learn and expand my knowledge. So that's what I bring to the table. And over the last 40 years, how many research hours? Uncountable. I have no idea how many research hours. Do I have 1,000 in? I'm pretty sure. Do I have 200,000? I don't know. I have no idea how many research hours I have in. All I can tell you is that for many of the years, my life has been focused on all of the things I like to bring to the table. And you know what? I'm still learning. I'm still researching. I'm still looking at things. I don't have everything right. Sometimes I will present to you information that is solid, factual, hardcore information that I would fight for and I would debate you on. Other information I bring, like some of the stuff we're talking about with the Holy Language, with Enoch, all of this, these are speculative bits of research. We don't know this for sure, but it's speculation. When I talk to you about ghosts, I can talk to you about solid things that I've experienced. Can I bring you information that answers and concludes it all? No. So there's all this up and down, back and forth, roller coastery stuff on every issue that's out there. I can talk to you about science and bring you solid scientific information and data, but you know what? Science is ever evolving. So there might be things going on that we don't know about. Take, for instance, I'll just throw this out to you as an example at you. Right now we say we can't be visited by aliens because scientifically there's no mode of travel that they could incorporate to get here in time to meet us. Then again, what if there's science that we haven't discovered yet? So that's the answer to that question. Of sometimes scientific information is spot on, other times we don't know if we've got all the science. So it's speculative and it's controversial. Things remain controversial because there will always be questions, there will always be research, there will always be evolution, there will always be discovery. Now, having said that, let's move on into our show. I hope you guys are having a great day. Oh, please go visit my Etsy page, etsy.com/shop/son-of-a-patriot. And one of my, Matt Finn or somebody is going to go ahead and they're going to post that in the chat room, and you can click on that link. And I want to go right into our Spark Courage for today. Spark Courage, 50 ways in this box that you can be bold. Let's go in here. We're probably gonna start hitting ones now that we're repeating. We're gonna hit ones we've seen before, but let's see what we got on the first draw. Here we go. Give a friend a pep talk, and then have him or her return the favor. Give a friend. Here, I'll hold that up so you can read it. Give a friend a pep talk, and then have him or her return the favor. Is there anything good about giving a pep talk? You can give yourself pep talks all the time. Come on, you can do it! Rob Schneider, if that makes any sense to all of you. So, if you know the references. So, give yourself a pep talk, or give a friend a pep talk. What did we say? Remember when we were talking about the fish organization and the 5 ways that you can eliminate toxicity, make yourself relevant, improve your life? It's come in with a good attitude, choose your attitude, make someone else's day. How can you make someone else's day? Maybe give them a pep talk. Tell them, hey, I know you're working hard. Don't blow sunshine up their ass. That's different. That's not a pep talk. Give somebody a real pep talk and say, hey, I know you're working on this thing. I know you're struggling, or I know you're having a good time. You're getting things going. Let me tell you how I respect you and how much I appreciate you. I try to do that I put this in the mode of uplifting the people around me. I don't like to look at people around me and blow sunshine up their kilts either. But at the same time, I also like to let them know when I think that they are valuable, that they're valuable to me. They may already be valuable. They know they're valuable. They're not struggling with how valuable they are. But for somebody to come along and say, hey, you're valuable to me. You've done this for me, and I appreciate that. To me, that's not placating somebody. That's being honest. Be honest about the way you feel about somebody if they deserve your honesty. If they're, let me reword that, not deserve your honesty. Everybody deserves our honesty. If they've done something that you want to pep talk them about, or something that you want to build them up about, be honest about that. If it's somebody that's an asshole, you don't have to do that. You can just avoid them altogether. Or you can say, hey, you know what? You're an ass. I don't get much out of you. That's being honest, at least. But give somebody a pep talk. Build up somebody for what they do, for what they bring to the table. And then have them do that for you. Or ask your friends, okay, give me a pep talk. Tell me what I need. What's a pep talk? Anyway, Pep talk is like a pep rally. Remember pep rallies from high school? Where you'd go into the gymnasium and everybody'd have a pep rally, to rah the school and the upcoming game or whatever. So pep rallies. Build on what is the positive about the other person. Build them up. Let them know I appreciate what you're doing. And this is what it means for me. And then you can do the same for them. All right? So let's leave that there. How does that increase your courage and your boldness? It puts you out there. You get out there and you put your face out there. Like yesterday, head high, chin out, chest out, shoulders back, body forward. Get out there and let them know what you think. And then ask for it back. So that's all we got on Spark Courage for today. We could talk about the elections in Georgia. I don't have the final results here yet, so we're going to leave that. All I will say is that I hope the United States, I hope the state of Georgia, and people encourage people. I see people that I know, hey, people in Georgia, go out and vote. And I know that they happen to be of a very leftist mindset. So they're wanting people to go out and vote to make sure that the leftist agenda is perpetuated. I say go out and vote. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Support the division of government. Support the balance of power. Government works best. Legislation, Congress, works best when it's divided. That's how you get to take this thing, this little thing you carry around in your pocket, your wallet, the stuff that what's in your wallet. You carry that, and you get to hold on to that a little tighter when government is divided. I don't care what side is in there. So vote for a division in government. Vote for a balance of power. That's what we need. You're going to see some probably dire things happen if one side controls absolutely everything in Congress. Don't be a Nancy Pelosi. Remember Nancy Pelosi? I just got to point this out. She called people out of quarantine to come in because the rules said you had to be in the House and cast a personal vote for her to retain her seat as the Speaker of the House. I don't hear the news talking about this anywhere. She called people out of quarantine when she and the Democrats are preaching all along for months about COVID and the things you have to do. Don't go out, separation. She's calling people out of quarantine to come and cast a vote so she could win that seat, and she won. And that to me is a dirty pool. That to me, it's not illegal. You can't throw anybody in jail as far as I know. But this is the way the left works. It's COVID for you. It's not COVID for them. The same rules don't apply. That's the kind of government you're going to have if one party, this whole left party, sweeps everything. So that's my thinking on that. That's all the further I'm going to go on politics. That's just a mention. Let's get into Enoch and the Freemasons. I'm kind of excited about this topic because we all have an interest in Freemasonry. We all look at this stuff and go, ooh, the Masons. As my friends, I got 20 friends who were Masons that were trying to get me to join up. And I would say, well, don't you guys like sacrifice goats and stuff? And they would say, yeah, we dine on small children after we do that too. And so there's always an interest in Freemasons. There's this public image they have, and then there's this private image they have. What's this esoteric knowledge that they seem to possess? So we were just talking about Enoch and the Great Pyramid, from Giza to the Tower of Babel, and there emerged a future group of people that retained this enigmatic knowledge, who sought the higher truths and the mysteries of God. And these included not only the divine measurements that, remember, it said Enoch was given the divine measures, weights and measures and language. So these higher truths and mysteries of God were given to them not only the divine measurements, but the science behind the sacred tongue, the sacred language. In effect, throughout the centuries, they became an organization in which to keep safeguard and obscure the sacred knowledge from the general public. They were called Freemasons or Masons, and branching into several other sects known as there's the Illuminati. Do you believe they exist? I think they do in a certain form. The global elitists, the Bilderbergers, the Rosicrucians, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the DuPonts, the Carnegies, Harriman, Schiff, Warburg, Smith, Stone, Young, Kimball, Bennett, Skull and Bones, all of those. And others as time advanced on. And according to sources, it's estimated that all of these people, they control half the wealth of the world, perhaps much more, by owning the world banks. And it reminds me of, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, if you've ever seen the Mike Myers movie, So I Married an Axe Murderer. It came out about 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago, something like that. Mike Myers in the movie, he plays his own father, his own Scottish father, in split screen stuff and all that, and he says, it's a little known fact. He says that the world is controlled by 5 families. The Rothschilds, the Gettys, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the DuPonts, and Colonel Sanders before he went teats up. So, there you go. You can watch that movie to get that little bit, or go look it up on YouTube. So, there are all these great families, these great organizations that, in a sense, rule the world. And in the past, these individuals weren't only the builders of these sacred monuments that we've just talked about, the Great Pyramid, the Tower of Babel, as far back as that. Now, it wasn't like the Masons. You're going to join up, brother, and become a Mason? It wasn't that. It was these organizations evolved from these elite that came together. So they built things like the Tower of Babel. They built things like the Great Pyramid. They were also higher echelon royal bloodlines who were entrusted with safeguarding and preserving all of this ancient esoteric knowledge. They believed themselves to be following an ancient blueprint involving a restoration of ancient Egypt for the New World Order, the NWO. The groups existing today preserve that goal, which not only is going to usher in some kind of new world order, maybe not in the sense that you think, like George Herbert Walker Bush, the New World Order. It might not be what you think it is politically, but they want to usher in this New World Order to keep the knowledge and the power in check and from being replicated, misused for ill intentions, as was done at the Tower of Babel. And there will always be an element of control on their part, especially if this power found its way into the wrong hands. What do you think is behind the elections that take place in the United States? Do you believe, is it just conspiracy theory to state something else is behind it? I saw a friend of mine who put up a meme a couple of days ago saying if you took 100 red ants and 100 black ants out of the jungle and put them in a jar, they just coexist. They don't do anything. Shake the jar and set it back down and release them all. And they all start fighting each other until they're dead. So the war between them isn't because they have animosity toward each other. The hostility started by whoever shook the jar. So who is behind the scenes shaking the jar? That's the big question. People generally want to live in peace with each other. But you're going to have people that always want to be in charge, that always have an agenda behind it. There's going to be an element of control on their part, especially if this power found its way into the wrong hands. And it might also involve the combination of selfish, malevolent, destructive, and manipulative activities. Remember the renowned scientist Nikola Tesla? His inventions for wireless free energy for anybody who could tap into it? He may have been one of the individuals that they feared. He built a tower of power known as Tesla coils that could transfer energy without wires. And these coils were able to utilize power in much higher currents than other types of high-voltage discharges. Tesla also experimented with resonance and vibration. Remember that from last week earlier in our talks about the flow of energy, resonance, vibration, frequency. And he experimented with those things. He caused dangerous, profound effects on the natural environment by these experiments, which produced man-made earthquakes. That sound familiar? Man-made earthquakes? The Great Pyramid? These particular higher echelon groups seek authority and control, as if they were a lesser god over a world government. To keep their status quo, they're reluctant to share this knowledge with anyone, thus keeping it for their own unjustifiable means, suppressing it, stifling others who pose a threat. What's their plan and justification for suppressing this knowledge? And are they doing so for their own delusions of grandeur? Perhaps unsuspectingly or unwittingly, they've sold their souls preparing for the arrival of a false Messiah. What might be construed as good intentions on their part might ultimately be strong delusions. You look at 1 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 12 in the New Testament. Concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered to him, we ask you, brothers, not to become easily unsettled or alarmed by some prophecy, report, or letter supposed to have come from us, saying that the day of the Lord has already come. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. Don't you remember that when I was with you, I used to tell you these things? And now you know what is holding him back, so that he may be revealed at the proper time. For the secret power of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who now holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, with whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth, and would destroy by the splendor of his coming. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with the work of Satan, displayed in all kinds of counterfeit miracles, signs, and wonders, and in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refused to love the truth, and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion, so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in wickedness. That's from the New Testament. Is that the message we need to hear out of this? We're going to come back and we're going to talk more about Enoch and the Freemasons. What can we get out of this? Where can we go with this? What are we supposed to glean? Sit tight. We'll find out when we come back.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
All right, folks, thanks for holding on through that break, and welcome back to the show for segment 2 of the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com, or you can come on over and join the other Intrepids in the live chat room and watch the video simulcast of this show at youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. And while you're there, become a member, hit the join button, hit the subscribe button first of all, and then hit the join button and become a member. You'll see 3 different ways you can become an Intrepid. We're talking about Enoch and the Freemasons. Now, there's going to be a lot of controversy about this. Freemasons. There are people that say, they're just an organization. You can have some Freemasons that go, we don't do all of that. We're just an organization that brings men together to be better men, to be better families, to be better members of society. Now, some people will say that that's the cover. We just went through and we talked about at the end of the first half, we talked about the biblical verse in Thessalonians that talks about there's a deception, there's a delusion out there. What's the plan? What's the justification? So if the power were to be utilized, even on a small scale, it could cause much destruction and chaos in the world. In fact, these small effects might be happening to us right now, right behind our backs in secret for covert reasons. The implications associated with it include our innocent vulnerability and our defenseless exposure to it. Today, one of these projects include the military and the Gwen Tower network. What about G5? What about all these things that are going on out there? This is all speculative. But this is a U.S. command and control communication system intended for military communications relating to nuclear war. Specifically, Gwen, or Ground Wave Emergency Network, was constructed to survive the effects of an EMP, also known as electromagnetic pulse disabling all electronics, and ensuring that the United States President or his survivors can still issue orders. Gwen transmitter towers are placed 200 miles apart across the U.S., transmitting up to 300 miles. They operate in low frequency, that's LF range. And these LF frequencies travel by waves that interact with the Earth by emitting frequencies through the ground rather than radiating into the atmosphere. While the Gwen project is said to be used for U.S. security, it's long been suspected it's also to be used for mind control. Have you ever been mind controlled? Would you know if you had been? It's been used for mind control on the American public. That's one of the charges. The potentially harmful mental effect of ELF waves, ELF waves, on human minds is very real. A frequency signal in the 10 hertz range is said to cause instability in the human mind and could easily instigate violent behavior. Interestingly, when a 10 hertz frequency was broadcast from the towers, it can be directly linked to a notorious killing and shooting crimes occur. It's even been suspected that the U.S. government has been using these types of shocking massacres to institute major policy and law changes designed to disarm the American people. What about all the mass killings and things like that? Do you see politicians using those to try to eradicate? They would eradicate and do away with the Second Amendment if they could. Another one of these projects may include the military and the HAARP weapon, HAARP. Specifically HAARP, or High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Initially, it was designed as a military defense mechanism that used these high-powered radio frequency transmitters intended as a space shield against incoming weapons, or as otherwise implied, a device for repairing the ozone layer. Remember all the ozone talk, which doesn't exist so much anymore? The talk of it. Rumors suggest that a HAARP is a weapon that can be used for weather modification to trigger climate change. It's also been linked to causing earthquakes and natural disasters of floods, droughts, hurricanes. It can also have the ability to modify the Earth's electromagnetic field, and allegedly been noticeable to affect people's brains. It might have the ability to modify the Earth's electromagnetic field, this HAARP. And it's even been implied that it's a weapon of the New World Order, in the sense that the entire world economies could be damaged through climactic manipulations by modifying or completely altering the climate in different parts of the world, thus resulting in the destabilization of agricultural and ecological systems. This is strikingly similar to the Tower of Babel project in ancient times. This is all interconnected with the Masons, who own the world banks. Their agenda, which revolves around money and control, not only political but financial, for their own self-centered agenda. Now, I have to throw in a little caveat here, is that this is speculative from one point of view. You're going to talk to Masons, they're going to say there's nothing like that that's going on with the Masons. There are some that are going to say there's something deep set behind the scenes that's working for control and power. So what's their goal with their money? What's the control, the financial, the political power that they're after? The answer is most valued piece of real estate in the world. The most valued piece of real estate in the world. What do you suppose that is? It's that little plot of land in which the new temple will be built in Jerusalem. The Masons are possibly plotting to rebuild Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, or rather build a great temple of all religions on the very spot where the Jewish temple once stood. I don't think your day-to-day Mason is going to know this. I think this is that deep esoteric, and there's going to be a righteous reason that they want to do this. Do you remember in New Testament, in biblical prophecy, might even be in the Old Testament where this comes up, but it talks about how the temple will be rebuilt in Jerusalem at the end times, when you've got the Antichrist, the lawless one, the deceiver, and all of these things going on in the world. So Solomon's temple being rebuilt in Jerusalem as a temple of all religions. They believe they're doing God's work by fulfilling biblical prophecy. But in actuality, they're only satisfying a darker agenda. This is where the whole Antichrist scenario enters the rebuilt temple, blasphemously declares himself as God. He wants more than money. He wants more than power and control. He wants absolute control over all human beings, the environment, the all-world systems. He wants to become God. And this doesn't necessarily mean it's an individual. Look at our own elections that have been going on. All the controversy over the election in the last 2 months. Let me ask you something. It may not be a singular person. Certainly not Joe Biden is not the Antichrist. That's not what I'm saying. Nor is Kamala Harris. What I am saying is, you've got an elite that seems to be shaking the jar behind the scenes, that wants an absolute control over the minds of the people, the nation. This is worldwide, but look in the United States. Look at COVID. Look at COVID restrictions, regulations. Look at businesses. Look at the possibility there's going to be laws that say you can't do certain things without having the vaccine. Now, I'm not necessarily anti-vaccine, but I don't know what to believe about the vaccine, to tell you the truth. Is there a conspiracy theory behind it? Sure. There's 100 of them. What's to be believed about the vaccine? If you take that, are you just taking a medicine and that's all there is? Boom. We're going to try to cure this thing and wipe it out? Or is there something more to that? Is there something more to making a populace comply with that? Especially when it's been proven that there's a 99.98% survival rate, yet we want to mandate taking a vaccine so we can, gain that extra 0.02%? I don't know what it is. So what's the goal here? Thessalonians 2, 3 through 4 says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sits on the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." Is that metaphoric language? Maybe, probably. So although a full-scale destructive event, such as the one produced at the Tower of Babel, is never going to happen again, God punished the world at the Tower of Babel. And his edict of misusing the holy language is still in operational force today. However, in a future time, this might change. One of the minor prophets in the Old Testament, Zephaniah, in chapter 3, verse 9, said, "For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent." So what is this biblical message? If there is a holy language, and it is the ancient Hebrew, and it builds into the Old Testament, the writings of the Old Testament, that makes the Old Testament not so much a big fairy tale anymore, doesn't it? But again, this is all speculative theorizing based on the things that are written. But also then, we got to go back to look at all the mathematics we've done. We've examined all the linguistics we've examined in this holy language, and the mathematics of it, in the measures and the numbers, in the Enoch stuff, in the Great Pyramid, up into the Tower of Babel, and all of these things. So despite the holy language being used for nefarious purposes, the true intended plan for which it was originally created is for healing, balance, and harmonization. Remember the commandment that says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before you. I am the Lord your God, thou shalt have no other gods before me." When you break down the linguistics, we talked about this once before, he's talking about there being other gods. And he's saying you don't choose anyone before me, any other one. And then he talks about not using the Lord's name in vain, which we always said, well, that means don't say Jesus Christ. Don't say, oh, God damn it, that these are minced oaths that are using the name of the Lord God in vain. That's a very, very extremely watered down example of using the name of the Lord God in vain. Using God's name in vain was knowing the secret language of God, the secret name, the word of God, and misusing it for vain, self-fulfilling purposes. That's what the commandment says in its language if you break it down and parse it down. Whoever uses the name, the private word of God for vain and self-fulfilling purposes will not be held guiltless, is what the commandment actually says. Is that where this applies? The holy language was for healing. It was for balance and harmony. Moreover, it's this all-encompassing long-term objective for global enlightenment and liberation. Compared to finding the Ark of the Covenant, which contains the Ten Commandments, or at least did, this knowledge and the power that it wields is unimaginable. Unfortunately, it sways in the balance between good and evil. There's this pendulum that keeps swinging back and forth. And where's it going to end up? How much of this type of esoteric thing that is going on behind the scenes right now? The fight for good and evil. The wars in heaven. The wars between the reptilian good guys and the reptilian bad guys. You know, we hear this stuff all the time. I, for one, tend to try to step away from that because it's so goofy sounding that you don't even want to promote those theories. But what's out there is this type of mythology that comes up into the modern time. Is any of that in existence? Is it really there? I'm not going to be able to prove it to you or disprove it to you by virtue of this show. But what we have is we bring all our prejudices with us. Our prejudgments of things, our preconceived notions. Oh, it's a fairy tale. It's all ridiculous. It's just religion. It's just man trying to figure out how to find a deity. That's all religion is. Or is there something more beneath the surface? We all know, I don't care how staunchly, what's the word I'm looking for? Bleached out your belief system may be to say, it's sterile. There's nothing else. It's just this. I was watching a Ricky Gervais video on some of his comments at the Golden Globes last year. And just for a little interlude while I was doing something, it popped up and I watched it. And he was in an interview and he was talking about life after death. He says, I don't worry about life after death. He says, because I don't believe there is one. I believe this is our life and we're done. I don't think there's a greater purpose, he said, a greater master to serve. He says, if I didn't worry about the multiple billions of years before I was born, why should I worry about what comes afterwards? He says, because I don't think it exists. That's one view of this. That's a very sterile view. What does he believe in his heart of hearts? I don't know if he has anything that gnaws away at him or not. He's got a reason for believing what he believes. Generally, those kinds of belief systems come from being dissatisfied with a belief system or being dissatisfied with something that was taught you along the way, whatever it might be. So, unfortunately, there's this sway between good and evil. We see that already. Is that just humanity? That's the way we are. What's beneath it all? Are there secret societies? Are there secret organizations that run the world? Maybe. That doesn't have to be a spiritual thing, a biblical thing, a thing of holy writ, although we find things that seem to support that case. So a closer, in-depth look of the holy language reveals yet another clue. Study the past if you would define the future. So said Confucius. Study the past if you would define the future. So to truly understand what the ancients knew, it would be necessary to thoroughly study texts of the Kabbalah, also known as the Kabbalah. There's just different spellings. Qabalah, Kabalah, Cabala. So the different spellings are all these transliterations of the word. And either one of these, any of them is correct. So the Kabbalah is a body of mystical Jewish teachings based on an interpretation of hidden meanings in the Hebrew Scripture. More clearly, it's a group of writings which has sought to provide answers to questions passed down from the Torah, which is the Torah is what? The Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah. And the Hebrew word Kabbalah means to receive, to accept. By studying the Torah, one can gain insight and understanding about the creation of the world. It's believed that when Moses brought the 10 Commandments down from the Mount Sinai, he also brought with him the oral law, the spoken law, the word law that speaks. which eventually encompassed the entire spectrum of authoritative Jewish religious teachings, followed by the texts of the Sefer Yetzirah, which also include the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Midrash, and others. They're a record of rabbinic discussions of Jewish scripture, of Jewish law, ethics, principles, beliefs, customs, and stories that go all the way back to the dawn of humanity. Aspects of Kabbalah can be traced back to the 1st century A.D., and later the 12th, as well as the 13th centuries, and to a French Jewish man from Provence known as Isaac the Blind. Isaac is considered the founder of the Kabbalah. He transcribed and transmuted the oral mystical theology into the written form of the Kabbalah in the present day. He alleged that this oral law, was handed down from Mount Sinai, from person to person until it reached him. Surprisingly, it was Enoch all over again, who is the inspired precursor in all of Kabbalah long before the oral law came into existence at Mount Sinai. Enoch is at the base of this. Moses wasn't the first to hear it, as Enoch was given the knowledge long before Moses ever was. Therefore, oral law seems to be the same fundamental practice that was given by God to Enoch. Moses and the angels involving the Hebrew language, as well as everything that's written within the understanding of creation and the origin of all things in existence. The Sefer Yetzirah text explains the design concept behind the whole formation and creation of all things in existence. It was written to expand the idea of how God used the Hebrew letters to form the material world and create all that exists. This magical number, magical is the word that just came into my head, the mathematical, the magic of the mathematical numbers, of the language, of everything, and how it all fits together. So, Kabbalah, oral law, it appears to revolve around the understanding of the Hebrew letters. For to understand God, we must first understand the Hebrew letters with which he thinks and speaks and creates all things. It all gets back down to the basics. He generated substance from which he formed letters, alphabet, combined words, transforming the physical world out of chaos, making non-existence into existence. So this process is better explained in Kabbalah by means of a spiraling wheel of light, or a wheel inside of a wheel, inside of a wheel. Remember Ezekiel? The wheel and a wheel and a wheel? The spiral is the wheel inside the wheel inside the wheel. It turns in conjunction with the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet in order from Aleph to Tav. This forming 22 letters multiplied by 6, represented by the first 6 letters and the very first word of the Torah, the Hebrew word Barashith, equaling 132, or 22 times 6 equals 132, which are indicated as partition gates to a wheel. And by transposing and permuting the Hebrew letters back and forth around this wheel by a process of diminutions, lessening of light, starting with the Hebrew letter Alf, or Aleph, with all of them, and all of them with Aleph. Then the Hebrew letter Bet with all of them, and all of them with Bet, by way of a wheel. This information can be found in verse Roman numeral 2, verse 4 of Sefer Yetzirah. So this transposition is similar. This is technical stuff, but listen closely. This transposition is similar to the sequencing of human DNA. In fact, geneticists who study DNA have finally discovered the truth behind DNA. When DNA is broken down, it's nothing more than light. Remember that? We talked about that? Light. The vibration of photons. So in essence, it's the basis of virtually all cellular and systemic function. Further, chemical reactions can only happen in the cell if the molecule is excited by a photon. One electron must be activated by a photon. Again, this is directed by electromagnetic wave vibrations, photons. Cell division. Some religious thinkers conclude that the Torah is beyond just being a guide for our existence, but that it's actually the blueprint of creation itself. If one letter were left out or altered in any way, it would spell destruction for the entire universe. The Hebrew alphabet is not merely just letters, but the manual and the blueprint for creating matter, the sole substance to all life. When you start seeing this and understanding that there is a mathematical, I was going to say genius, but that applies personality in a way. There's mathematics behind this that changes your whole view of the Hebrew alphabet, of the biblical text. In order to fully understand this spiraling wheel of light, there's a greater significance concealed behind the number 6. Recalling that the very first word of the Hebrew Torah, the Hebrew word Barashith, which is found in Genesis 1:1, this word is composed of 6 Hebrew letters. The Bet, the Resh, the Aleph, the Shin, the Yud, and the Tav. Hebrew is read right to left, and this word can be broken into 2 words, bara, meaning to create, and shith, meaning to number 6, meaning the number 6 in Old Aramaic. In the present day, the Hebrew letter shush means the number 6. And strangely enough, the word barashith is exact in its full meaning, created 6. What the hell does that mean? What does create 6 mean? Other than that there are 6 letters in the first word of the Bible. To find the answer to this, in Hebrew, each letter of the alphabet also has an orderly, numerical value assigned to it. For instance, Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, and so on. And with this being the case, we find that there's a numerical pattern in the first verse of Genesis 1:1, which contains 7 words. It's 913 plus 203 plus 86 plus 401. I didn't prep a graphic. I just throw the graphic up. Plus 395 plus 407 plus 296 equals 2,701. That's the number. And it goes on and on. There's all these diagrams. There's designs to the Star of David. There's an interesting aspect of the whole star design allows us to see that's indeed describing a 6-pointed star that's structured by mathematical equivalency. All of this stuff we're going to get into tomorrow. I'm going to throw up some diagrams and show you how this is working and what it means and why this is important to know when we start thinking about holy language. Intriguing stuff? I think it is. So sit tight. I'm going to take a break for 23 hours, and we'll be right back. Have a good night.